Good day, and thank you for joining us for another edition of Conversations with AARP in the Virgin Islands. I'm Troy Deshabir Schuster, State Director for AARP in this territory. Today, we shine a spotlight on an extraordinary individual who is making a significant impact in our territory, the dynamic and dedicated advocate, our current volunteer state president, Corinne Plaskett. In this engaging conversation, we'll uncover her remarkable journey as volunteer state president of AARP in the Virgin Islands, her leadership and profound impact she's had on the Virgin Islands, and most importantly, the legacy she's leaving behind. For the past 6 years, Corinne has not only led the charge as the volunteer state president to the over 100 state volunteers of AARP, but she's also spearheaded initiatives that have transformed the community for the better, from healthcare advocacy to other initiatives that help to enhance the quality of life for residents. She has had a remarkable tenure at our state office. And so we welcome Corinne Plaskett. Welcome, Corinne.
Thank you so much, Troy. It's such a pleasure to be here with you having this conversation.
Yeah,
Thanks
thank you
for
for
having me.
our pleasure, and thank you for making the time to join us today to talk about AARP and your time with AARP. So before we get into AARP, let's go back a little further in your history. And I know that you had a great career in healthcare here in the Virgin Islands. So tell us about that and your tenure with the Department of Health.
Oh, Troy, that was one of my favorite places, health department. I started out in the health department as a coordinator of administrative services and moved up to the rank of deputy commissioner. My most challenging work while being deputy commissioner was when Hugo, do you remember Hurricane Hugo?
Yes.
During that time, I I got lucky to be assigned the administrative end of reconstruction. So I was able to work with architectural firms and engineers and with the rebuilding of Wang Louis, Roy Lester, and the clinics. And that was a very challenging experience.
I'm sure. So you had to handle the healthcare recovery for the entire territory or just for St. Croix at that time?
Entire territory. Also, Myra Keating in St. John. But there was a wonderful staff and dynamic architects and engineers that worked with me, and I did the administrative end.
Great. So that was a huge, huge undertaking. And I was not here for the whole period of time because I was away doing my undergraduate studies in Cincinnati, Ohio. But I remember it going quite smoothly. So
Oh
you did a
yes,
great job with that.
oh yes, it was really wonderful, wonderful. And one of the most remarkable things too was when the Frederickstead Health Center and Easton Health Center came on board. I was instrumental with Dr. Cora Christian in assisting to write the grants for those health centers.
Excellent. And they continue to serve our territory very, very well. So the fruit of your labor is long lasting.
Yes, they and my work there with the health centers just so much remind me of what I do with AARP because initially they just serviced rural areas.
Right, right. And going back to post Hurricane Hugo, how long did it take approximately for those modular units at Wang F. Louis Hospital to be erected and put into use after the hurricane passed?
Oh my. We probably within a few weeks we had dep meds, and after the dep meds, it was maybe I would say like 8 months before we had those modulars constructed.
Wow, yep,
It
more than
was
30 years ago, and in 8 months they were up and running.
certainly a different time.
A very different time. A very different time. Well, now we finally have the modulars functioning at Wang F. Louis Hospital years after the passage of Hurricanes Irma and Maria. So, we look forward to construction of new hospitals, hopefully within the very near future.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So tell us now about your journey with AARP, because you came to AARP as a volunteer long before you became the volunteer state president. So
I
tell us what brought you to AARP, and how did you become a volunteer? What was your early volunteer experience for AARP?
Troy, how I got to AARP. Actually, when I left health, I was the deputy director for elections in St. Croix. And I often worked with AARP uh, with voter registration. And so that sparked my interest. And AARP was rolling out a program called Reimagine Life. And I volunteered to serve as an ambassador for that program. It wasn't necessarily reimagining life for retirement, but it was just reimagining life, whether you were in transition for work, unemployed, or whatever the situation was. And I started with that Reimagine Life. After Reimagine Life, I got invited to join the advisory council. And so I started with the advisory council maybe 2 years into my volunteer experience.
Yes. And for those who may not be aware, Reimagine Life or Life Reimagined in AARP was just that, about reimagining your life after retirement and what would you do with yourself after retirement, and helping to empower people to again choose how they live as they age, looking to encourage people to develop a retirement hobby or a retirement business, just reshaping one's life, because after retirement, it's not the end of your life. That's the beginning of a new era in your life. Over the years, Life Reimagined has fallen by the wayside in AARP, and now we have another program called Disrupt Aging, another concept that we run throughout the entire organization to disrupt all of the preconceived notions of aging, because so many people think, especially younger people, think that as you get older, you just become useless or decrepit or unable to do things. But at ARP, we show that the older you get, the more active you can become, the more vibrant you can become, the more vibrant your life becomes. So we ask everybody, all of our listening and viewing audience, to tune in to AARP on a regular basis, keep in touch with us through Facebook, AARP Virgin Islands, to keep in touch with us through our website at aarp.org/VI, to see all the wonderful programs that we have, everything from educational workshops to exercise classes, everything free to the community. And of course, our movies. We put on movies periodically, 4, 5, 6 times a year, and the movies are free to the public. And we encourage people to register for the movies and to participate, and to have fun with us, have fun with purpose in AARP. And so you just mentioned the executive council or advisory council. We use those two terms interchangeably. We're moving toward advisory, but initially it was called executive council. And so tell us a little bit about how you became a member of that council.
Okay, Troy. I was offered an opportunity to do what AARP then called Leadership Academy. And so I had that opportunity. And once I went through that Leadership Academy, I was prime and ready to take on the challenge of joining the Executive Council, because at that time it was called the Executive Council. So that's how I came on to the Executive Council, and that's where you met me when you came on as a volunteer and now state director.
Yes, so we share that experience of both being a volunteer for AARP, because before I became an employee, I started as a volunteer, and I became the lead community outreach volunteer. So, because of my role as lead community outreach volunteer, I participated in those executive council meetings. And also, I was the vice president of the AARP chapter, which is separate and apart from AARP. So for those who may not be aware, we have chapters, AARP chapters here in the Virgin Islands. We have a St. Croix chapter, a St. Thomas chapter, and a St. John chapter. And I'd like to give just a little history about chapters. Before AARP developed state offices, an office in every state and in the territories of Washington, D.C., Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands, there was just AARP at the national office in Washington, D.C. And so AARP wanted to get into the states and into communities, so they started AARP chapters all across the country. And chapters are almost like a franchise. They're independently incorporated and they carry the AARP chapter name and logo. And chapters are made up completely of volunteers, and they were the ones who were doing all of the advocacy, all of the outreach in every state and lots of communities across the country. And so we had three chapters here. The three chapters here continue to exist. But approximately 25 years ago, thereabouts, AARP started developing state offices and putting employees, AARP employees in every state. And so my predecessor, Denise Singleton, became the first state director of AARP in the Virgin Islands and started the first state office in this territory. So the chapters still exist. They run separate from AARP. For those of you who are interested, you can not only be a member of AARP, but you can also be a member of the local AARP chapter if you so choose, and and have a more complete AARP experience. So yes, I was a volunteer, and I met you in the executive council or advisory council, as we're calling it. We call it advisory because executive council implies that it's a governing body, but it's not. It's an advisory body of volunteers that helps AARP to develop their state plan, or in this case, territorial plan, that helps to direct the work, to coordinate the work of AARP in the state, or again, in this case, in this territory, the Virgin Islands. And then shortly after that, I was hired, employed by AARP as the state director. And so eventually you took on a new role. So tell us about that.
That role. And Troy, thanks so much for giving that little synopsis about the chapters, because as you know, that some of the chapter members are also state volunteers. So there is a little connection there with the chapters. But when I came on as state volunteer state president, I don't know, it's just a very, very exciting move for me. And there is a little misnomer because you hear state president. Some people believe that the state president is over the state director. And this is one of the reasons I am very particular to say volunteer state president, because it is a volunteer position. And everything that I do as a state president, I do in conjunction and in participation with the state director. I like to say that my success working with the state director is the fact that I don't step ahead. I stay right behind, but I don't go too far behind so that if you stumble, I'll be right behind you. But I think that that has been one of the things that has really helped me in working with AARP. But it's a partnership, and there is just so much support from staff and the state director. So anybody that hears the position and think that it's something that you're out there on your own, it's not exactly like that. There is great working relationship, team building, and that's what makes it such an easy ride, an easy role that I've enjoyed for the past 6 years.
Excellent. And we so appreciate you and your 6 years of service as a volunteer state president. And for, again, for our listening and viewing audience, we would like to let them know that this is a 2-year term that can be renewed for 2 more terms for a total of 6 years maximum, and that this December you're reaching the end of your 6th year. So unfortunately, you have to leave that role of volunteer state president, and it'll be sad to see you leave that role, but we know you'll be with us at AARP, and the position is now open. This voluntary position is open, and you can find more information on our Facebook page at AARP Virgin Islands. You can also find more information at aarp.org/volunteer. So you can see how you can go about applying for that voluntary role within AARP of being the volunteer state president if you may be interested. And of course, there's the whole description of what the volunteer state president does. But going back a bit, again, it's been so wonderful having you with us for 6 years, and it's important for, again, our audience to know that AARP is what we call a volunteer-led organization. So every employee must have at least one volunteer partner, and in the case of all of us state directors, our volunteer partner is the volunteer state president. And as you so elegantly and eloquently said, that yes, you walk with me. I put with me at my side, and also maybe one step behind to catch me in case I fall, right? In case I stumble and fall. But walking with me, mostly holding my hand, helping me along the way, and giving me great input, great feedback, so that I may be a stronger state director, and so that the state office will really meet the needs of the community. And so tell us some more about your experience of being the volunteer state president, what you've experienced here in the Virgin Islands and even nationally with AARP.
Troy, it's been such a wonderful journey. And as state president, you work closely with the advisory council. One of the roles is to convene and direct along with the state director, the meetings of the advisory council. In addition, it requires lots of work with the volunteers. And what I love, though, about working with volunteers is that volunteers bring so many different skills and talents that it's just everything you need is right at hand. Our volunteers straddle the rope from we have nurses, social workers, attorneys. So it just gives you an idea of the quality of work that we can produce through our through 100 volunteers, because I think we're up to about 100 volunteers now. Of course, you said before that AARP is a volunteer organization, and the volunteers are the ones that drives this organization. So I, really also would like to encourage anybody that's interested to really check us out. And we have a menu of offerings that you can select from what you're most comfortable with or what you want to do. And that is the great thing about volunteering with AARP. It doesn't have to be just one specific thing. And of course, we have those few volunteers, Troy, that are the episodic ones that just want to work for one specific event. So it just brings a whole, and I must tell you this, that at one volunteer event, we had the opportunity to ask volunteers to tell us in one word how they felt about AARP. And I got comments such as pleasure, excitement, inspirational, high profile, uh, organized, committed, enlightening. And the one that I liked so much is that they talked about the organization being more about policy and not about politics. So you see how well our volunteers amplify the work and keep AARP in the community.
Yes, we always get great feedback from our volunteers. Like you just said, we hear all kinds of great comments, all kinds of feedback. I've heard many of our volunteers say that this is the best volunteer experience they've ever had. At AARP, we make sure to support our volunteers well, to provide a very happy, beneficial experience for our volunteers. So even if you're not interested in applying for the role of volunteer state president, please do check out all of the many volunteer opportunities that AARP provides. And let's work together to build up the community here within the Virgin Islands for the older population, for the 50 plus, and also making preparations for the younger population, right? Because we're all in that spectrum of aging, whether we're 40 years old or 8 years old, or if we're newly born, we're all aging. And if nature allows it, if God allows it, we're all going to end up to the point of being 50 years of age or much older. And these days, people are living a much longer life. So we have to continue building for the future and building for future generations. And so, in your role as volunteer state president, you not only have served locally, leading the advisory council, also called the executive council, but as the volunteer state president, you are the lead volunteer in the territory, but you also participate in programs nationally. So if you will tell us a little bit about those.
Oh, great, Troy. Of course, I uh, we belong to the New England region. You can give more information on that. So I just wanted to let people know that on the national end, I associate with the state presidents in the uh, New England states. And of course, we, just like the AC gathers here, we gather together, discuss what we're doing in each state, each territory, share information. And it is just such a wonderful opportunity to be able to work on the national level. It's like if if you go to a doctor, you get a prescription. The national issues the prescription, but when you come back locally, you can take those policies, those prescriptions, you can find local remedies and ways to blend in what their enterprise strategy is to make it local to suit your community. And that's the one thing that I just love about AARP, even though the policies and the mandates may be nationally broad, they are so generic that they can fit in within your community. And that is just, maybe at this time I should also tell you, Troy, that one thing that I really, really like about this organization, and anybody that follows me in state president, they need to know that that support is there. This organization is an organization of resources. There is nothing that you need to work on that there is not a place that you can find resources or get help and get assistance. It is a resourceful organization.
That is for certain. AARP is extremely resourceful and full of resources and tools for employees, for volunteers. And as you also mentioned, the New England states. So we're part of what we call the East, and now they've added Caribbean. So East and Caribbean region, which includes all the New England states, Delaware, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands. And so, as volunteer state president, you travel with me twice a year to our regional conferences. We'll be going again next month. Unfortunately, that'll be your last time with us traveling as a volunteer state president. And during those conferences, you get to interact with other state presidents and, as you said, learn so many other resources. And then you have monthly calls also, right, with other state presidents in the region, monthly video conferences.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's an opportunity for me to showcase what we are doing in the Virgin Islands, and it is such a wonderful experience. I don't know what it is about the Virgin Islands, but everybody they pattern off of what we do. They're always excited to find out what we're doing and just like our approach to things. As a matter of fact, tomorrow morning is my national conference with state directors in that region.
Yeah, and so what you said is so true. We're a small territory, a small team of employees and volunteers, but we're always so very innovative here, and we always gain the respect of our national colleagues and national partners. So, and again, I thank you for that. You know, you've been an integral part of that, and the wonderful support you've given to me. Again, today we're talking with Corinne Plaskett, volunteer state president of AARP in the Virgin Islands. You're reaching the end of your 6-year term or actually end of your third 2-year term for 6 years total as volunteer state president. And unfortunately, you have to leave that role at the end of this year because AARP only allows 6 years. I wish I could keep you in this position a lot longer. Uh, I've known you all my life. I grew up with your daughter. You've always been such a wonderful encouragement and support to me. And it's been a real pleasure and an honor having you serve as volunteer state president. You've worked tirelessly for AARP in the Virgin Islands. And as I said, I'm sure you're going to continue volunteering in some capacity. I'm not going to let you leave AARP that easily. We still want you around. And for a listening and viewing audience, if you may be interested, you can find more information on how to apply at AARP Virgin Islands Facebook page and also aarp.org/volunteer, running the ticker across the bottom of the screen right now. And you can find more information and go through the application process. But Corinne, we're almost at the end of our show. Any parting thoughts in our last minute and a half?
No, I just want to just thank the community and AARB for allowing me to serve in that role. And I just want to leave a little tip for anybody who's applying. Just please do go out there and apply. And three of the things that I think was the best for me, that I considered myself a convener, an influencer, a voice for AARP. And those are the qualities that you just need to bring to contribute to AARP and to your community.
Very good. And again, Corinne, thanks so much for all of the wonderful support and the guidance you've given to us here at AARP. It's been a great pleasure. So we look forward to having you in another show with us in another capacity. And we hope that our listening and viewing audience may be interested in this role of volunteer state president. Thanks so much, Corinne, and have a great day.
Thanks for having me, Troy.
Pleasure.